Top Gun Maverick is out in theaters, the sequel to the 1986 classic, finally here after a three-year delay. Originally, the film was supposed to be released in 2019, but the pandemic delayed it significantly. Directed by Joseph Kosinski, who interestingly already made a sequel to an older movie, Tron Legacy, starring, of course, Tom Cruise, plus Jennifer Connelly, Miles Teller, Val Kilmer, John Hamm, Glenn Powell, and Ed Harris. Story picks up with older Maverick still working as a pilot, testing cutting-edge aircraft for the American military. At the beginning of the film, he is called back to the Top Gun school for pilots. Apparently, there is an almost impossible mission waiting for the top pilots from the school, so difficult that even they don't have the skills and the experience necessary to perform it. And so Maverick has to teach them everything he knows in the short few weeks before the mission deadline hits, and then pick up the team from the best of the best, decide who's going to lead the mission, who's going to be on it. Problem is, one of the aspiring pilots is Rooster, who is Goose's son, and so Maverick is torn between wanting to guide and mentor the kid, feeling he owes him, feeling somewhat responsible for his father's death, but at the same time, because of that, he wants to protect him. And what better way to protect him than to not pick him for the mission? So I will say this. I think it's a film that has some obvious flaws. It can be cheesy as fuck. Some of the superheroics done by Cruise are more fitting for the Mission Impossible franchise than for this film. It has a romance subplot that at one point becomes borderline self-parody. And you can make an argument that it is once again a huge advert for the military. And yes, it does require suspension of disbelief, because some of the shit that Maverick does in this film would get him thrown in jail immediately in real life. So it's not strictly grounded and realistic. However, none of those flaws really matter for me, because when the movie shines, it is absolutely spectacular. In fact, as I was watching it, there would be something I didn't like that much, or something that would bother me, and I would sort of make a mental note of that. And then the film would go into another action sequence, and I'd just totally forget what I had a problem with. It no longer mattered, because I was enjoying myself so damn much. I was at the edge of my seat. Now, there are several reasons why the film works so well when it does. The first and most obvious one are the action sequences. Make no mistake, this film contains the best flying footage in history of filmmaking. And I think it's not even a competition, because it does things that no other movie has ever done. Maybe Dunkirk to some extent with strapping IMAX cameras to Spitfires, but Maverick takes all of this to the absolute next level. Part of it is the American military allowing the filmmakers to use actual planes and pilots, and to put the actors inside the cockpits during real maneuvers to limit the use of CG. So most of what you see on screen, the flying, that's real, that really happened. Part of it is the filmmakers' ingenuity with actually building a special camera that could fit into those tiny cockpits so that we can see the actors' faces at all times. I mean, the end result is just jaw-dropping. It's exhilarating, scary, exciting, and triumphant all at once. And the last 45 minutes of the film are just pure adrenaline. It's really, really phenomenal stuff. But the action isn't really everything that works about the film. There's more. I love the fact that it's not a lazy-ass reboot/sequel which only has Maverick as a sort of mentor character that gets sidelined as the story goes on, and then the young dudes take over in the last half. No, it's very much his film throughout. I love the central conflict with him and Rooster, and the performances by both Cruise and Teller are excellent. I love the music and the cinematography. I love the way that the film balances the weight of its predecessor and then tapping into the nostalgia, because it sure does that. It balances that though with being a new story, being its own modern thing. I love the way they handle Valkyrimer's inclusion. I mean, he's been battling throat cancer in real life for the past couple of years, and his voice is basically gone. But the way they worked him into the film, I felt was very, very touching and emotional, but also very respectful. I also love the character of Hangman, who is essentially Maverick from the first film. Only this time he's not the protagonist, he's the antagonist for our characters, which allows us to sort of examine the same type of character from a completely different angle. All in all, it's just so impressively competent, much like majority of Tom Cruise's filmography in the past decade or more. I mean, say what you want about the man's personal life and all the Scientology bullshit and so on. If you cut that off and just look at him as an artist, as an actor and a movie producer, he's fucking excellent. He has a great sense for cinema and what to do to make cinema great, and I think it's impossible not to appreciate him for it and not to love his movies. Top Gun Maverick is no exception to that rule when it comes to that. I absolutely loved this film. I think it's a rare example of a movie that is imperfect, that knows its imperfections and says, you know what, they don't even matter because you're going to love this anyway, because the highs that we reach are so high that you can't think of anything else. And it's completely true. I loved this film and I can't recommend this enough. See it on the biggest screen you can find.